In this podcast episode, we want to introduce you to our BCEN friend, Taylor DuBose. Come along as Michael Dexter and Hollye Briggs talk with Taylor about her start in emergency nursing. Taylor is using all her experiences to guide student nurses as they navigate the transition from classroom to patient care. This episode is called Learning to Embrace the In-Between.
Hello, and welcome to the BCEN and Friends podcast, where we hold interesting conversations about learning with a range of thought leaders, BCEN certification holders, and industry professionals. But most importantly, to create value and insight for you, our professional nurses across the emergency spectrum. We hope you find our discussions interesting, informative, sometimes funny, sometimes serious, and always valuable. I'm Hollye Briggs, a professional development specialist at BCEN and one of your hosts for today. I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Dexter, Director of Professional Development at BCEN. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Hollye. Great to be back with you again.
Great to have you. In this episode of BCEN and Friends, we have Taylor DuBose. Taylor has been busy these last few years, moving from her initial nursing education. She's now accomplished completion of 2 master's programs and stepped into leadership for a technical college to help others find their place in the profession of nursing. Michael, could you please introduce us to our BCEN friend, Taylor?
Yeah, I would be happy to. Taylor is an emergency nurse with 6 years of experience in various ED settings, including a level 2 trauma center and rural ER care. She holds the CEN and CPEN credentials and is currently working as the department chair of nursing at a technical college. Taylor oversees the associate's degree, transition, and practical nursing programs. She started her nursing education with an associate's degree and then completed an RN to MSN tract in leadership and management. She recently completed her MBA and is enrolling in a DNP program for educational leadership. It's clear that Taylor is passionate about education and using her love of lifelong learning to help others achieve their goals. And I'm really excited to talk with you today. Taylor, welcome to the BCN and Friends podcast. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we are glad that you're joining us today. And just a little bit more about you. Could you just tell us why you became a nurse and what made you go into emergency nursing and kind of where you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. I started off in the emergency department after graduating from an ADN program, like you said. During nursing school, I worked in the Children's Hospital and Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, which is truly where I expected to stay after graduation. At the last minute, I had a change of heart and accepted a position in the emergency department, which was the best decision I could have made because I fell in love with it. I was fortunate to have 2 very experienced preceptors that gave me the best foundation you could ask for in a busy level 2 trauma center. I remember that feeling of showing up the first day and feeling like I learned nothing that I needed to know in nursing school and I was in way over my head. But they kept me grounded and taught me everything I needed to know and reassured me. I stayed in that position for a while full time and then dropped down to part-time status and picked up another part-time position at one of our smaller critical access hospitals where I worked in the emergency department primarily and also a little bit of adult ICU. During my time there, COVID came about and I was able to grow even more as a nurse. I knew that I wanted to continue my education. So while I was working in the emergency department, I went back to school through that RN to MSN program. I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do with that higher degree yet. So I picked leadership and management as my specialty to keep my options open. After completing the BSN portion of the program, I ended up picking up an adjunct position at the local technical college as a clinical instructor. That semester, I had an amazing group of senior nursing students that I was able to guide through their last clinical rotation. It felt really good to be able to share my knowledge with them, and it felt like fate when a full-time nursing faculty position was opening not long after I completed my master's degree. I started that position weeks after completing my first clinical rotation with students and started teaching pediatrics while helping with the other courses. I'm now the department chair of nursing at that same technical college, which has helped me grow as a person and as a nurse. My favorite part of my job now as department chair is pinning the graduates that I've watched grow during their time with us. We really get to know these students and help them through their struggles academically and personally. I'll never stop being amazed at how students are able to overcome the barriers that they do and accomplish their goals. When I pen them, I not only think about all of the patients that will be impacted by their care, but also the impact it makes on their own lives and their families. Nursing changed everything for me, and I will forever be grateful to be a part of that journey for others. For most of my nursing education career, I've continued working PRN in the emergency department because my passion for patient care has never left me. I feel that by keeping my practice current, I'm a better educator because I can keep up my skills, stay up to date on evidence-based practices, and understand the pressures facing the nursing profession currently.
So let me ask you, Taylor, before you got into nursing, was this always your goal ever since you were young, or did anything compel you to become a nurse to begin with?
I have a grandmother who was a nurse, and I remember hearing her stories growing up, and that was something that was very impactful on me. I changed my mind several times about careers throughout the years, but found that I kept coming back to nursing. And when that was the thing that I just kept coming back to, I was like, well, I guess this is what I'm meant to do. And it ended up working out in the end.
It's really interesting to hear your story about how you had in your mind, I'm going to do this type of nursing. And then when you got into the ER, you realized, no, this is really what I want to do. And you had the support that you needed to kind of make that transition from nursing school into your first, true step into the practice of nursing at the bedside. And you had the support, you had these mentors, you had people who set you up for success. And then almost in just like a beautiful arc of your story, now that's what you're doing for these students that you're interacting with. And I think it's just a very cool and beautiful thing to know that you're taking your experience that you had and now you're recreating it for others and setting them up for success. So kudos to you. I'm super excited to hear about someone with your passion for nursing who's just turning around and impacting those emerging professionals, people who are coming up into this profession. So thank you for that. In your opinion and your experience, because you're working with nursing students a lot, what is one of the greatest challenges you see that is facing our nursing students today?
I believe that one of the greatest challenges facing nursing students today is learning how to advocate for themselves and for their patients. The current nursing shortage, increasing numbers of high acuity patients, and decreasing numbers of experienced bedside nurses create a lot of obstacles for this new generation of nurses. In the wrong environment, they could be pushed to work extra shifts, take more patients than what they should be, work when they're sick, and even come off of their new graduate orientation early to accommodate the needs of their unit. So I do my best to try to teach them self-care because the rate of burnout is on the rise, and we're even seeing it in these nursing students before they graduate. You can just see the exhaustion on them sometimes. So I try to teach them how important it is to say no to certain things. They should feel comfortable saying no to working overtime every week or to an unsafe patient assignment. If we don't advocate for ourselves, no one else will. Nursing is an amazing career that can bring them so much fulfillment. So I always hope and encourage them to find the place that they want to work where it feels like home and they feel valued and that they're not feeling all of those extra pressures from the environment that healthcare is in right now.
I wanted to follow up on that. One of the things that I hear a lot, and being that you're a nursing instructor, I'm just curious as your viewpoint on this. There's a lot of conversation about the way nursing students are taught in schools these days and about the sometimes lack of clinical abilities because some stuff has moved to sim or because of, the changes that happened during COVID. But then there's also conversations regarding the fact that many people feel like nursing students are pushed to go straight to advanced degrees, become nurse practitioners or CRNAs, things like that, and that there's not as much focus on the bedside nurse as much as there is on other opportunities away from the bedside. And I'm just curious if that's something you see a lot of nursing students coming into with this idea that they don't want to be a bedside nurse and they want to pursue other things, or is that just maybe an incorrect thought process by some?
No, we definitely do see some students coming in day one saying that their goal is to just go straight into a nurse practitioner program after this, like you said, or they're seeking other opportunities within nursing that don't involve bedside patient care. So it really puts the responsibility on us to educate them on the importance of that bedside experience. And that's what I really love about associate degree nursing programs is that there is that focus on bedside patient care and those technical skills that it just takes time and practice to do. So we really try to focus on getting as much clinical time for these students as possible. We do still work in the sim lab because that has a lot of great opportunities for them to see things that they don't necessarily get to see all the time and to put them in the driver's seat and kind of see how they can critically think through situations without worrying about patient harm. But there is nothing that can truly replace being at the bedside and getting that experience. So we do try to stress the importance of that to them.
Okay. And so going back to you, so you had mentioned that that's why you enjoy the associate's program. And I also started out with an associate's degree in nursing and then later got my BSN and MSN. And so for you personally, you started with an associate's and then you've moved on. But what really have you seen in terms of furthering your education that you maybe try to instill in others? Or what would you say would be some of the biggest value that you've received from having your CPEN and your CEN, getting a master's degree, now looking into a DNP program? On a personal level, but also maybe on a student level, how do you see that this has impacted yourself and those around you by pressing yourself to really push the boundaries and get more education, more certification, etc.?
Absolutely. Education has opened so many doors in my life that I never thought were possible. I'm the type of person that if I set my mind to something and that's what I want to do, I don't want there to be a reason why I can't do it. So education has been my way of making all of those dreams come true. I just keep challenging myself to go further and learn more because I feel that I owe it to myself, my students, and my patients to give this career all I have. I was told early on in nursing school that nursing is a field where you have to be committed to lifelong learning. And I think that truly is one of the best parts of this field. We're constantly evolving and integrating best practices that make a positive impact on the lives of so many people. My certifications in education has given me the knowledge and tools I need to not only stay current, but also be a change agent. And it's really a way to hold you to that higher standard because once you get those certifications, you don't want to lose them. So you're going to continue getting education to keep up with that, and you're growing in the meantime.
I 100% agree with you. Once you get those certifications, you don't want to lose them. So you got to keep up those hours. And to me, studying for certification, working towards recerting in those credentials, I have learned so many things that then I could take back to the bedside or enter into a conversation on the unit, find a new way to educate a patient that I didn't have before, I didn't think of before. And so I was once told that no education is bad education. And I think that that is just, it is so true. You can absorb so much information and you may not need it today, but you might need it tomorrow for the patient that could be coming through the door or the conversation that you're having with another provider, another nurse, or even a nursing student or a tech, and you're able to explain it in a new way, a better way. And so again, I'm really inspired by just your constant drive to continue to push your own personal and professional boundaries. So that is awesome. Aside from teaching, working in the ER, your family, you do take time to volunteer as a healthcare professional in a very unique environment that you told us about, NASCAR races at the Darlington Speedway. So my question is, can you tell us a little bit about this experience and then kind of what was your biggest takeaway about giving care in what is a very unique space for healthcare?
Yes. So our hospital staffs the infield care center for the Darlington Raceway, that hosts NASCAR races 2 weekends out of the year. When I first started in the emergency department, I remember hearing about the nurses that had the privilege of working the races. I saw the pictures they posted after and thought about how cool it would be if I got to do that one day. As soon as I got the chance, I signed up to work the race, and I was so happy that I did. The Infield Care Center is basically a smaller scale emergency department sitting in the middle of the racetrack that has most of the things that the ER has. So it's going to have your stretchers, cardiac monitors, crash carts, medications, and all the supplies that you could need. It was really surprising how well prepared we were for the different problems and emergencies. When I showed up and saw it, it just wasn't what I imagined in my head. When I first got there, I was shown where everything was in the paper charting system. Employees from NASCAR gave us instructions on what to do if we needed to take care of a driver. They were the driver's advocates and stayed with them throughout the treatment to make sure everything went by policy and the drivers were safe. One thing I found interesting was that every driver had to have carbon monoxide levels checked on equipment provided by NASCAR, no matter what they came in for. And the NASCAR officials would also do their own tests on them to ensure their safety. I was able to work alongside a team of physicians, emergency nurses, and critical care transport nurses and paramedics. We cared for drivers, but also crew members, other employees of NASCAR, and fans. When we weren't busy, we were able to walk a short distance to the edge of the track and watch the cars race by. I think that my biggest takeaway from the experience was how many amazing things you can do as a nurse. We have the opportunity to work in many different settings, so there's always excitement to be found. The experience was really cool and something I'll never forget.
So Taylor, you know, when I think of NASCAR, I think of maybe a significant burn injury or significant trauma or something related to a wreck on the circuit. But tell us a little bit, without, of course, giving any details away on patients, but tell us a little bit about some of the unique presentations that you've cared for at a NASCAR race.
Yeah, so thankfully, when I was there, there were no major accidents or injuries to the drivers. There were a few that came in for dehydration. It was extremely hot. We're here in South Carolina, so it's pretty hot and humid most of the year. And they're in those cars for hours on end. So we did have some that struggled with that. We had some that were in minor crashes out there, but thankfully nobody sustained injuries from that while I was there. So that was nice to be able to get them back out on the track because that was their goal. It was really cool to work with those professionals because they came in and they were very serious, and their one and only thought in their mind was, how do I get back on that track and finish this race? So that was interesting.
Well, you have had obviously a lot of education, a lot of ability to impact others, and certainly through your volunteerism as well. But we always like to ask everybody on the podcast if there's a certain moment in your career or a certain person that has really impacted you as an individual and perhaps changed the trajectory of what you were doing in life, or where your focus in nursing was, et cetera. But is there any particular person or moment that really stands out to you?
I've been fortunate to have many people who have encouraged me, taught me, and reassured me throughout my career. Like I said, when I started, I had two very experienced preceptors, Dawn and Justin, who gave me a solid foundation for ER nursing. They really taught me how to deal with different types of patients. They taught me the importance of evidence-based practice and doing the right thing every time, even when it's not the easiest way to do things. So I'm very thankful that they gave me that solid start. There's also my director, Candace, who has made a huge impact on me because she is the nurse that I strive to be. She's extremely intelligent, but not afraid to say when she isn't the expert on something. She treats all patients and staff with dignity and respect and kindness. She has encouraged me to continue growing in this career and striving for continuous improvement. There have been so many other nurses and patients that have impacted me as a nurse and as a person. I found that some of my most impactful life lessons have come from just chatting with patients and even just being there for them in their moment of need.
Thank you for sharing that. I know sometimes when you get asked this question, so many people's faces and just moments come to your mind, and you realize almost just how lucky, how blessed we are to be able to work in a profession where, we could be helping someone on their worst day, and yet we walk away impacted and forever remembering the things that they said or the lessons that we learned from them. I love this question. I love hearing from other nurses about who inspires them, who's impacted them. And a lot of times some people don't even know that they did, and yet we keep them with us. So thank you for sharing that, Taylor. I appreciate it. I get the pleasure of asking a few rapid fire questions on this podcast. So if there was a career outside of healthcare you'd like to try, what would it be?
When I was little, one of my first dreams was being an elementary school teacher. I've always loved working with kids, so I would want to find a way to still do that if I wasn't a nurse.
Awesome. All right, here's some favorites for us. And again, these can be all-time favorites or it can be just something you're currently into right now. So what is your favorite book?
My favorite book that I've been reading lately is The In Between. It's by a nurse named Hadley Blouse. It's a really inspiring book that was written by a hospice nurse who talks about her experiences with patients at the end of their lives. This book made me laugh, it made me cry, but at the end, I was left feeling comforted by the story she told and even more grateful for the work of hospice nurses than I was before I read it.
That is a great recommendation. I have that written down. And I have a good friend who's a hospice nurse. And sometimes her stories are some of them are sad, I will give you that, but some of them are truly just inspiring. So that sounds like a great read. All right. Favorite movie or TV show, or it could be just like a binge-worthy series that you'd like to recommend for us.
My comfort shows are Gilmore Girls and The Office, I would say.
Oh my goodness. I can turn The Office on and find myself in that episode, and I'm just like, yes, I'm gonna watch this now. So I feel that one. My sister's a big Gilmore Girls fan, so good for you. Two very, very absorbing series for sure. And there's lots of them, lots of seasons. So that feels right. All right, favorite musical artist.
My music taste is really all over the place, which can drive my husband crazy on road trips with me. But right now, I'm a huge fan of Zach Bryan and Tyler Childers because of the soulful spin they put on country music.
Awesome. Man, I like a good eclectic drive list. Like when you're going on a long road trip, I'm one of those people. I'm like, let's change it up every, hour or so. Let's go to another genre of music. So I think we would be fine on a road trip. Sorry for your husband. I'm sure he's learned to adapt though. Do you have any other hobbies, or what is kind of your self-care go-to?
So between working two jobs, being married, having three kids, and being back in school, I have very little time for me, which means I don't always practice what I preach about self-care. But when I do get that rare moment, I really do enjoy reading, going on walks, and napping because I feel like napping counts as a hobby.
I could not agree with you more. I think that all of those that you listed are things that I could easily do to help kind of reset me, because that's really what self-care is about. It's about prioritizing yourself, taking care of yourself in a manner with which you feel more yourself at the end of it, right? So all of those sound like great ways to reset. So thank you for sharing all of that, Taylor. If our audience would like to follow you online, what social media platforms could they find you on?
I don't post a lot on social media, but I do have a Facebook where I would be happy to connect with others.
All righty. Well, we will make sure to include that in our blog for this episode.
Well, Taylor, I wanted to thank you for joining us today. I always think it's interesting to look at emergency nursing from so many different perspectives. And we often talk to people that are very strong in clinical skills or that are into leadership or those things. But I think it's often overlooked where we all started, which was in nursing school. And so it's nice to see that somebody is helping encourage others, helping grow future nurses, future leaders, future clinicians. and to get your perspective and your thoughts on that. So thank you for all that you're doing for so many nurses everywhere. And thank you for joining us today, sharing your passion with Polly and I.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Well, I want to take this time to thank Taylor for joining us for this episode of BCEN and Friends. Thank you, Taylor, for sharing your experiences, your insight, and inspiration for this profession that we love. You are building a foundation for so many students and showing them practical ways they can grow through professional development and education. We appreciate all that you are doing. And to all of our listeners, we hope you will stay tuned as we continue with BCEN and Friends and bring you new, meaningful content and perspectives. If you have a suggestion for an episode, please email us at bcn@bcn.org. I'm Hollye Briggs here with Michael Dexter, and on behalf of the entire BCEN team, we thank and celebrate you for all that you're doing as professional nurses across the emergency spectrum. Until next time, we are out.